You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Happy Friday, folks.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, Wife Dork.
Hello.
And Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
Hello!
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. And welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast, Fistful Friday. Happy Friday, everyone.
I am so hungry right now.
Yes.
Well, we got food on the way, Lisa.
Yay. So you may hear a disturbance in the forest, listeners. That's just the delivery guy.
Shout out to Chopsticks in Herndon.
Yay. Sponsor us, please.
Don't give us our location of the Dork Cave away, Lisa.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Everyone, how was everyone's week? You made it here. I'm so glad.
Yay. It was excellent. What did we do this week, Brad?
We
What movies did we see?
we finished the Rocky franchise.
Oh, we did.
Oh, the whole.
We will by Friday because it's Friday, Brian.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. So this week in Dork, we have a fistful of hallways.
I feel like we're mixing up our segments. Our week in Dork, we have a fistful of...
Did I say week in Dork?
You did.
I meant fistful. This Fistful
We're all
Friday.
delirious with hunger.
We are.
And this is in honor of our favorite film of the year so far, Winchester.
Oh, yeah.
Yikes. Pay no attention to that review cast. Actually, listen to it. So, in honor of Winchester, like Brad said, we have a fistful of hallways.
This was also a shout out to Jimmy Reed of Cuddles and Rage.
Oh, yeah.
He requested this fistful like 2 years ago.
All right.
You probably forgot about it.
This one's
All
for you,
requests
Jimmy.
pay off eventually.
That's
Just
right.
keep listening.
Keep listening. Keep them coming. All right, Brian, kick it off. Your number 5 hallway in cinema.
I got a list here, but I might just randomly kind of pick because all these are so kick-ass. So basically, with hallways, I want to choose something because I'm an action junkie, so I want to choose like some fight scenes that happen in some hallways or some shootouts and stuff like that. I think I'm going to start on TV. Yeah, let's just start with TV. That would be episode 3, season 1 of Daredevil. The fight scene where he goes to rescue, I believe it's a little girl that's being held by
Some dude.
Yeah, some guy. I haven't seen season 1 since it came out, but that one take hall fight scene. I mean, people talked about that leading into these Marvel's Netflix shows, and this being the first show to kind of hit a few years back. Episode 3, when you see that scene and how that scene was constructed, and then that one shot, I just thought that was just magnificently done. And we talk about this a lot, having fight scenes where you can actually feel the intensity of the fight, and it doesn't feel choreographed, and you see the fighters getting tired. We recently saw that in Atomic Blonde, where you see the exhaustion wearing on the people that are combating in these fist fights, and you feel that with Matt Murdock in this scene. I just thought it was just brilliantly done, and and of course that started this whole thing with every Netflix show has to have a hallway fight scene, and this was the one that kind of kicked off, and I thought it was just brilliantly done. Daredevil season 1, episode 3.
All right, Lisa, your number 5.
Yes. So, for my number 5, I'm sticking with the horror theme. I'm going classic.
Oh, no.
So I'm going with 1977 film Suspiria. Are you going to do this one? Oh, okay. It sounds like not. So Suspiria, starring my fave,
pick,
Jessica
Lisa.
Harper, takes place in this ballet school.
Yep.
And it is like 70s out. It's like Technicolor. There's all kinds of like crazy architecture, and so there's one scene where the girls are like in their little dorm and they're talking about like when the dance school closes, like all of the teachers are supposed to leave, but if you listen to the footsteps, the teachers aren't leaving. They're going deeper into the building. So, like, where are they going? So Jessica Harper and her roommate are, like, counting footsteps to see where they go. And so something mysteriously happens to her roommate. So she decides to follow the footsteps, and she walks through this, like, deep murder red hallway to follow the footsteps. And the set of this dance school is absolutely astounding. It's very red and fuchsia, and then the deeper they go into this building, then there's like this elaborate like flower room where you push on the blue flower, and that opens up into this hallway where there is like this a mural and all kinds of stuff. So the sets are amazing. The floors are amazing. But right now, I think I'm just going to stick to the red hallway. And that's why Suspiria is my number 5.
All right, B, you're number 5.
All right, since you went with a red hallway, I'll go with a red hallway.
Yay!
And this is more along the lines of those kick-ass corridor fights that Brian was talking about. Raid 2, the climax, or very close to the climax of the film, when Iko Uwais' Rama has to go up against Hammer Girl and Bat Boy. It is probably my favorite fight scene in the entire movie. You know, the film has established these two goons, Hammer Girl and Bat Boy, as true, vicious, violent threats. And there's just something about a claw hammer that is uncomfortable to just even contemplate that coming anywhere near your teeth. All right. And that happens over and over in the Raid 2. And now Rama has to not only protect his jaw from Hammer Girl, but he has to protect his skull from Bat Boy.
Yeah.
And it's just savage. It's savage and fast. And it's a tiny red corridor. It's not longer than, I would say, 50 feet.
Yeah.
And they're just going back and forth, boom, 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 until Hammer Girl gets that claw in the neck. And then he's able to take out Bat Boy on his own. It's savage. It's the Raid 2. If you have not seen the Raid films, then you have missed 2 of the best action films of not only this century, but any century.
Of recent memory.
Yeah, for sure.
What I like about the Raid 2 and also the first Raid is, in that particular fight scene that you're talking about, takes place in the around at a corner of a hallway,
right?
And that also happens in the first Raid, the first main fight sequence in the hallway in that building. Also, it culminates at a corner part, and I like that because it opens up the geography more, and it just gives depth to the location of where they're fighting.
And it is a literal turning point in the story too. And I love what's around that corner in the Raid 2.
Yeah.
All right, nice. Great pick. My number 5 is going to be one of Brian's favorite films. It is the end sequence of Luc Besson's Leon. So the final sequence of that film, there's a standoff between Leon and the SWAT team that is commanded by Gary Oldman's character.
Everyone!
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. And I like how Luc Besson stages this particular action sequence, because we go from outside of the apartment to inside of the apartment. And the camera's a sweeping camera, so he does it in that way, but he also uses cuts. But the way he's editing that scene and that sequence, just how he has it set up, because Matilda is gone. She's made a milk run. She's gone to the store for some milk, and on her way home, she's commandeered by the SWAT team, and so they have her on the outside of the apartment in the hallway around a little corner. And so the way that Luc Besson has the SWAT team come in, set up, and have them around the corner, and then the way that scene transpires with them letting her go, and Leon, played by Jean Reno, how he negotiates to have her come in, and then where that goes with that character, and then the shootout that ensues. I just thought that for a climax of a film, to center around this sanctuary, this home that took her in, and then the way that it's constructed and how it plays out, I just thought it was brilliantly and masterfully done, and just pulled off expertly. And so not only do you have this enormous action sequence in this confined space, but the character work that goes with it, the people who are involved, the people who are in peril, I think because the way that movie treats those characters and how those characters are written and the relationship they have, the payoff for it, I think is perfect for that sequence in the hallway. So I don't know, like that's just one of my favorite action beats to take place in a close quarters. That's my number 5. Brian, your number 4.
Well, to my number 4, you just mentioned it, Darren. Piggybacking off of Brad, is from the first Raid, and it's that scene you just talked about where you have Rama and he's trying to help his other partner, and he's been injured, and they go up to that floor and they're in the hallway, and then all these bad guys come around the corner. And he kind of pushes his partner aside, and then he just goes to town with that. What's that police weapon?
Tonfa.
The Tonfa?
Tonfa. Huh?
Tonfa. Okay. And that music kicks in. That score from John Trapanese and Mike Shinoda kicks in, and it's just so kick ass. And like you say, just the savagery of seeing Iko Uwais go to town to a lot of these bad guys. And it's that one shot, that one move where he takes the knife down his and cuts and slices down his thigh.
Gives me the creeps.
I was like, oh God, every time. And then of course it all culminates with the multiple head banging against the wall. It's just a great scene, and it's just it's great camera work. And again, it just kind of it really just the score. I can't like just talk enough about that score by Mike Shinoda and John Trapanese. I would love for them to do more movies. I don't know how much. Well, they did the score for Tron Uprising, that cartoon series.
Yeah.
And I think they've worked on some other stuff, but they just have such I don't know, just a way of combining that type of kinetic energy with the music that they have with that. It was just an absolutely fantastic scene. So yeah, that brutal knife slice.
That's
That's my number 4 is The Raid.
All right, Lisa, your number 4.
My number 4 is a modern sci-fi classic, and that is 2014's Ex Machina.
Yay.
And the scene, so
yeah.
I
Yeah.
love this house. I love this house. And the upstairs of the house is all windows, and it's in the mountains, and it's lush and green and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But downstairs, where, the bedrooms are, where Ava's room is like this gray, like impersonal, like that. The lights are on the floor and they shine up, and it's very kind of utilitarian and ominous, and the opposite of the nature that is upstairs. And this scene I'm thinking about is Ava, go back to your room. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So Ava has kind of discovered what she is, and she has now is determined to escape. So her and Kyoko are on one end of the hall, and Oscar Isaac sees that they're out, and so he tries to like be the commander, be the creator, and go like, Ava, go back to your room. But her code is broken. She's now set to escape. So Ava goes to the end of the hall. They have kind of a struggle. He knocks her arm off, and that kind of blows her mind. But while he's distracted with her, Kyoko comes up and just like butter slides the knife into his back. And then there's this whole other level of, curiosity where like, Ava's not scared. She's just like curious. And so then when Ava gets the knife, then she's just kind of like poking it with it. And it's like disbelief on both sides. They're going like, look at this like human body. Like how does this work? And he's like, look at this amazing thing that I made. It's murdering me. Yeah. It's a great scene and a great movie. I'm due for a rewatch. It's fantastic. This scene is actually available on YouTube if you want to watch it.
Yeah.
So good.
All right, Brad, your number 4.
I'm also picking a classic sci-fi film. I love piggybacking off of Lisa. She had The Red Corridor. She has a cool classic sci-fi film. So, yeah, of course, that means I'm talking about 2002's Resident Evil. classic sci-fi film that we all appreciate like I do. It's the laser corridor as Alice and her Raccoon City SWAT team venture deeper and deeper into the Umbrella Corporation's bunker. They need to track and shut down the Red Queen that is operating all the booby traps. And there is a hallway that they encounter. And I generally do really appreciate the design of the first film. I love all the glass, and in particular in this hallway, you know, the walls are glass, and there are, you know, fluorescent tubing running behind the glass. And of course, there is a laser beam that jets out and cuts a guy in half right out the gate. Like, oh no, well, we're going to have to figure out the pattern of this laser as it goes up and down. We could duck under the laser. We could jump over the laser. But then it turns into a mesh and just cubes a guy. Yeah. I think that's, oh gosh, what's his name? Colin Salmon, who plays Agent 1. He gets cubed in the first Resident Evil. And and this scene is also on YouTube, and you can go back if you haven't seen Resident Evil in a while and watch this scene. I think it's pretty effective. Yeah. I'm a sucker for Paul W. Anderson's Resident Evil saga.
Yes, you
are. The first film is by no means my favorite, but it has some highlights like the laser corridor.
All right, that's a good pick. that they revisit several times in the franchise.
They do. They know a good thing. They know a good thing when they make it.
My number 4 is from Matthew Vaughn's Kick-Ass. It's a sequence that happens later on in the film where Hit Girl is, and it actually it's not even confined to a hallway, but a small portion of it takes place in a hallway as she makes her way through some bad guys. So, you know, this is an adaptation of a comic book. Matthew Vaughn has since gone on to do X-Men First Class, and he also did Stardust, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
But for Kick-Ass...
I've never seen that.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't seen Stardust.
You might like it. You may like it. Lisa might enjoy it, too. Chloe Grace Moretz, if I'm not... Is that how you pronounce her name? This was the first time I had seen her in a film, and... You know, just the idea of the character Hit Girl is a pretty radical, if not divisive idea, where you have a child who, not unlike Matilda and Leon, who was been trained in the art of killing. And this scene goes to showcase just how much of a student she was of her father, Big Daddy, played by Nicolas Cage, played amazingly by Nicolas Cage. How much training has gone into fashioning her into this child-sized weapon, and you know the action in the film is very much like what you get in this sequence. It's a hyper realized. You know, you could see a lot of this in the Kingsman films, and it's, you know, for the particular story that it's telling in the source material, I felt like it's a pretty pretty faithful representation of some outlandish comic book action. And, you know, you have to, in order to sell that character, you know, in order to make the audience look past the premise of you having this child murder people, you gotta make that child likable, but then you also gotta make her kind of cool. And I think this sequence goes a long way to solidifying that as a Hit Girl as a character. So yeah, it's it's a really short sequence, but it's a really effective one as far as, you know, displaying and showing what this character can do. And unfortunately, I don't think that there was much in the sequel that lived up to even this. Definitely not like...
Sequel is trash.
Yeah. But that's unfortunate because there's so much that you could do with this particular character. But, you know, we got the first film and we do have this particular sequence in the hallway. So that's my number 4.
Jeff Wadlow, who directed the second film.
Yeah, he's doing Truth or Dare.
He's doing Truth or Dare. Yep. Yeah, which we're really excited about if you listen to our Winchester review cast.
That's right. Brian, your number 3.
My number 3 is going back to a film that inspired me to be a filmmaker. It is Asian cinema from the heroic bloodshed era genre. John Woo's Hard Boiled takes place in a hospital hospital. I love this. Again, going back to my number 5 pick, which was Daredevil, talking about one-shots. This was a clever way for John Woo to really kind of showcase his brand of action. Of course, it's laid out throughout the entire film, which the warehouse scene alone is probably one of his best sequences ever in his whole filmography. But with the hospital scene at the end, there's a scene between Chow Yun-fat and Tony Leung as they're going down the corridor, and it's all one shot. And I think Tony Leung has he has a 9mm and I think maybe an Uzi, and Chow Yun-fat
MP5.
Okay, well, you know your guns better than I do. Chow Yun-fat has like a shotgun, and they're going down the corridor, and I like it because they're having conversation. So there's still character development and story going on while this action sequence is happening. And even in this one shot, I thought was really clever. They go inside of an elevator and they move up and go to another floor, which I heard in the making of this film that was the same floor that they shot on. So when the elevator door closes, you have the whole crew rearranging the whole set design before they open the door up, and it's still one shot. And I've heard of productions doing that a lot, but for that to be done at this time, I thought was just brilliant and very innovative and resourceful for John Woo to be able to do that. And it's just an awesome sequence. Like, again, with the storytelling going on at the same time in this one shot, it's just so innovative. But yeah, hard boiled, awesome scene.
All right, Lisa, your number 3.
I am pulling a Brian and like constructing this list as we go, and I'm afraid that somebody else is going to use this. No. This should be my number 1, but I'm going to say it now just in case Brad wants to steal it or Brian wants to steal it. So it's
yours.
I'm going to go with 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh,
fuck! Really?
Yes.
Well, that's my number 1.
Oh shit!
But maybe your hallway's different than my hallway.
Okay, well, there's two. There's the one with the space travel scene.
Shit.
Where we're following the space stewardess in her gravity shoes, and she's walking down the through this space travel
Pan Am thing,
and she's carrying and she's going, and then the thing turns. Or there's the one where with the HAL space station where he's doing the jog around the centrifugal force machine.
Which one are you doing?
Oh, I don't. Well, I'm gonna have to go with the stewardess because of the Blue Danube.
I got another hallway in that movie.
Okay, good. Well, I'm gonna take that one.
I can't believe you. All right, great minds think alike.
What I love about, like, one of the things that stands out is that they're taking this huge trip through space, which you can imagine is hugely expensive for Pan Am, and there's like nobody on this flight, this particular flight. But I love the fact that the fashion is so. I should have thought of this more. But like so like 60s style, but it's like 60s futurism, which is like one of my, like it's just such a crazy look. This idea that stewardesses would still dress up and look super nice. Then again, I guess
I love her Velcro shoes.
The gravity shoes. And then the hallway, there's like this one spot in the hallway where it turns and she changes direction. And the whole idea is the gravity is simulated by the centrifugal force. It's cool. I like it.
Great pick.
So this was also going to be my number 1, but since Lisa took it and we're talking 2001, I'll make it my number 3. The hallway I'm thinking of is a metaphorical hallway. It's going beyond the infinite. It's when Bowman actually reaches Jupiter and he sees the monolith, and they pilot the spacecraft into the monolith, and they go beyond the infinite, and that's when you have all those psychedelic colors, the hexagonal shapes, and that animation sequence with "Thus spoke Zathras." How do you say that, Lisa? You say Zathura. It's not Zathura. It's like Zathra.
Zarastra.
Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. And that music's happening, and it's this long, 6 minute plus sequence where Bowman is being transformed, and every time I watch this movie, and we're so lucky to live in and around Washington, D.C., because 2001 plays on a fairly regular basis on the big screen. And, I have appreciated this scene at home on Blu-ray or when I was a kid, when I would watch it on VHS. But on the big screen, when you're at the AFI Silver or the Alamo Drafthouse, and you enter this monolith and go beyond the infinite with Bowman, it is cinema at its finest. It is such a visual and oral experience. No other art form can achieve this transformation, so that when he finally does go through and he is in that fancy schmancy bedroom, and he has passed on beyond, and he can evolve with this alien intelligence. I mean, it's like you are going through this experience with him. It feels unlike any other movie, being strapped to that spaceship. So yeah, that's my favorite corridor ever. But right now we'll make it number 3.
Okay. All right, great pick. My number 3 comes from 1981's film directed by Terry Gilliam, maybe my favorite film directed by Terry Gilliam, and that's Time Bandits. I remember first seeing this film as a kid, and the reason why this particular haul I have on my list is because the way that it was shot and just what happens in the context of the story was so impressionable to me. So there's a kid named Kevin, and he's living a mundane life. His parents are plopped in front of the TV every night, just watching game shows. It's very industrialized. It's all about the product. So there's that commentary in there. So they're just so dismissive of Kevin. He goes into his room, and each night he's hearing rumblings and coming from his wardrobe. Well, one night the wardrobe pops open, and the Time Bandits spill out of there. It turns out there was a time hole in his wardrobe, and they come out. So the Time Bandits have stolen the map, the great map, from the creator, and this map is used to go and patch up these holes that are in the universe. And so they stole it, and they're going through time. They're robbing from people, not to give to the poor, but to keep for themselves. And it just happened to take a wrong turn and end up in Kevin's bedroom. Well, Kevin freaks out, and when this scene starts out, it's just a normal 4-walled bedroom with 4 corners, and the bandits look at the map and they figure out, okay, we're not where we're supposed to be, but there should be another portal around here somewhere. And they say it's on the other side of this wall. So they go up to the wall and they start pushing on the wall. So they start banging on the wall. But then they all lean on it, and the weight of them moves the wall down a few feet. So they expand the room, and then they keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And they end up creating this hallway, this long corridor. And that was always so, as a kid, that was so distressing and disturbing to me, that this room, this place of sanctuary that this kid knows as finite, it would house something so much more like sinister, because he doesn't know where this hallway leads, and they end up pushing that wall to the end of the hallway until it falls off into this openness, this nothingness. And then that's when they go through that, they jump, and they end up going through the time loop. And that is also Kevin's means of embarking on this adventure that would be the rest of this movie. And so just that image, and Terry Gilliam is so good at constructing these weird lasting images out of things that are birthed from normalcy. And the way that he obscures those things and translate those to storytelling images, for me, are one of the great strengths of him as a director. Like the image of that giant coming out of the sea with this hat that was just a normal boat, but the whole time, this boat that was, it was this hat. There was a normal boat prior to that sequence happening, but then we see that it's something totally different. So I love that Terry Gilliam does that with this film, and as a filmmaker, and it stays in my mind, like that particular sequence.
That's a great pick, Darren. I wish I had thought of that. That's such a good hallway.
Yeah. So that's my number 3. Brian, your number 2.
All right. I think I'm in a little of a conundrum. So, Darren had my number 2, so I'm gonna try to pull an audible, which was the kick-ass scene was my number 2.
Yay!
We have food.
Yay!
Hi. I'm good, thank you.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, hold on. Okay. So my number 2, and I'm thinking somebody else may have this on their list, so I'm a little nervous.
I'll just edit your voice out. I'll just beat the whole thing. Beep.
But so I'm gonna pull an audible, and I'm gonna say my number 2 is gonna be Attack the Block.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's a good hallway.
That's a great one.
Okay,
That was I had it as a backup.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, that's good since you stole my number 2.
Well, you stole my number 1.
Number 1.
Yeah, keep going.
Which one?
Let's talk about it. Go.
Okay. So I'm audible my number 2 for Attack the Block. This is actually the scene towards the end where they're heading to Ron's weed room, and they get out of the elevator. So it's Moses, Pest, and Jerome, and the lady that I can't remember her name at the time. I just rewatched this. I read it on Letterboxd.
Doctor Who.
Yeah, I can't remember her character's name.
Yeah.
But so they shoot off the firecrackers down the hallway because they know the monsters are down there. So they shoot those down there, and they basically, I like how they use the firecrackers as like a form of defense. So the hallway is kind of very smoky, very foggy as they kind of make their way
Jodie
down.
Whittaker. Character's name is Sam.
Sam. Yes, Sam. So the hallway is very foggy as they make their way down this hallway heading to Ron's weed room. And I love this scene because it really builds the tension and really builds on the fright of these characters in that moment. And because the hallway is so foggy, I love the sound design of the creatures during this scene. And as you see Moses and Pest and Sam move forward, you start to focus on Jerome. And, because Jerome wears glasses and then he ends up losing his glasses. And I love the way they shoot because he hears a sound behind him and he turns around. And then the way he's able to edit the film to kind of make him feel disoriented as he's trying to find his way. And then you can hear Pest calling out to Jerome. And, because he's disoriented and not knowing where he is, he doesn't know which way he needs to go. And then at that point, he gets attacked by one of the creatures. And it's such a great practical design when he gets his death scene where he kind of gets pulled back, and the blood squirts out and everything. And he grabs Pest's leg. And then Pest is swinging at the end. It still ends with a nice comedic moment where he's swinging the bat, and then he hits the other dude in the face with the bat as he's pulling him away. But it's such a great scene, and especially the way that scene is constructed. I love this. Like I said, I just recently rewatched it, and it's such a great film.
Darren said this before, but Alamo needs to bring that back. I need to see that on the big screen again.
Yeah, that would be great to rewatch on the big screen. Again, that was a comfort film. I didn't put that on my list, I don't think, but that's definitely a movie I could rewatch over
Pacific
and over.
Rim 2 coming out. We need another Boyega movie.
I still think that's Boyega's best performance.
Easily.
Yeah.
One of the great things about Attack the Block is that although on the one hand it gives you great and rich characters, and when you fall in love with all of them, but the cool part is that it lends weight to the things and the threat that are happening because it's not afraid to kill some of those characters.
Not at all.
And when at least me, when I talk about horror films or films where like people are perishing, for me the biggest thing is, do I care about those characters? Because if they die, then if there's no connection to those characters, then that death is weightless, it's meaningless. It's just, all right, we're just checking them off till you get to the final girl. But this film has you care about each one of those characters, so you don't want any of them to die.
And some of the ways they do die is crazy because, like you said, you connect yourself as you learn, like as you go along this film, like the character of Dennis. And when he dies, like when he gets his head chopped off, when they come through the room, it's like, damn. It's like, it's like, it really does invest you into these characters. So when they do go, it's impactful. Yeah.
So that's like the catch-22 was wanting that. You want characters that you care about, but then you don't want them to die.
Exactly.
But at least those deaths mean something.
Yeah.
So Attack the Block. Please, Alamo, put that on the docket soon.
One of my all-time favorite movies. I love that movie.
Yeah, come on, Brian. Allow it.
Trust.
Your number 2.
My number 2 is a new to me movie. I saw it for the first time last Sunday.
Oh.
Thanks to Emily Sears of Birth Movies Death. Yay. If you're not following her on Twitter, she is wonderful. But the movie is one of her personal favorites. and it is The Dreamers, directed by Bernardo Bertolucci. So this movie is about this kid. He's an exchange student in France.
What?
Brett is doing some lewd gestures. He's an exchange student in France. He's played by Michael Pitt. And he bonds with this brother and sister played by Ava Green and Louis Garrel through their love of films. And so he's a walking IMDb. They're all walking IMDb before IMDb existed, because this movie takes place in 1968. During the riots and
the dark time of pre-IMDb.
It's so sad. That was the worst thing going on in 1968. But this movie's a little bit twisted. So Michael Pitt falls in with this brother and sister. So he starts hanging out with them like full time, and they're like the only people he know in France. But then there's something a little twisted about them. I don't want to spoil it, but it's that this brother and sister are playing little sexy games with each other. It's really super fucked up. So
is that the corridor you're talking about?
There's 2 corridor scenes.
Oh.
So one, like his sister's corridor.
Yeah.
Gross, Brad. Gross.
Yeah.
So there's 2 corridor scenes in this, and one of them is a major bonding scene between these 3 characters, because they love movies so much. So they want to reenact a scene from the film Band Apart, where they this group of friends run through the Louvre and try to do it in like a record time. So they try to beat the record from Band Apart, and the Louvre is like one big hallway because it's a museum. But the hallway scene I'm going to talk about is Michael Pitt is staying in this brother and sister's house for the first time. This apartment is amazing. So the kids are their dad is like a famous poet, so he has this huge apartment, but it is like chock full of like stuff. So there's like all of this weird art, and there's like, and the hallways are like lined with like books, and it's all like, it's the kind of apartment I love. If you look around the Dork Cave, like clutter, like everywhere you look, there's something interesting that catches your eye, and you just want to dive into the scene and start to explore. So Michael Pitt is staying over at this house for the first time, and it's the middle of the night. He doesn't know his way around. He has to pee. So he gets out of bed, doesn't do his pants up, which I think is weird, like if you're in a strange house. And so he goes to look for the bathroom in this hallway, and the hallway is like full of books. And then he opens one door, and then he sees the brother and sister sleeping naked together, and we're like, what?
They're sleeping, right?
They're sleeping, but they're like
naked?
spooning. I
Body heat, maybe.
I have 3 siblings. We have never been in the same room in my memory naked.
Oh.
Like, gross.
Oh.
Gross.
You just gotta be free like those Europeans, Lisa.
I suppose. It's nasty. It gets weirder from there. That is like the beginning of the weird with this particular set of twins.
Okay.
They're twins, folks.
Well, when it's twins, it's not really incest.
It's not really.
It's like just doing yourself.
It's like,
right?
Oh goodness!
It's just masturbation.
they say they're Siamese twins. They have mysterious scars or birthmarks, but I don't think they are. They say they're Siamese twins of the mind. I'm giving too much of this movie away. You don't need to watch it. I found it only okay. Sorry, Emily. But that was an amazing apartment.
Yes.
I want that apartment. Except for the kitchen, like our kitchen. Very dirty.
Oh, okay.
In more ways than one.
Oh, like our kitchen.
Oh, all right, Brad.
Flashlight.
You're number 2.
My number 2 comes from a franchise filled with great corridors, the Alien franchise.
Monkey brains.
In particular, I want to highlight the first film, Alien 1 from 1979.
That's what I was thinking.
And I'm thinking about the scene in which Tom Skerritt's Dallas is tracking the xenomorph through the ventilation system. Because those are a kind of hallway, tiny little ventilation system.
Is that the scene that has the jump scare with the cat?
No. This is the jump scare with the xenomorph.
Alien,
Yeah, but I
yeah.
knew there was one with the cat, but I think that's with Harry Dean Stanton. Okay.
Yeah, that's with Harry Dean Stanton. No, this is the one where Dallas, they're tracking it through their little radar system, and you can hear the ping, ping.
Oh,
ping.
yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, you're above it, you're below it. No, you're in the same damn tube with the xenomorph."
Yeah.
And Dallas has this flamethrower, and he's periodically, blasting it down the corridor, hoping that the creature will get swept up in its flame.
Yeah.
But he f's up. It's right behind him. It's right next to him. Opens with loving arms and takes Dallas, and the Captain Tom Skerritt is gone.
Yeah.
The person you thought was going to be the lead of the movie is no more. And then you have Veronica Cartwright screaming, because that's what she does in this movie. The Alien is my 10th favorite film of all time, and it is my second favorite corridor / hallway / ventilation
I
system.
need to rewatch that.
I had that movie on my list, but I think it should be on anyone's list if you're talking about hallways. What the Alien movie, especially beginning with that one, does with as far as production design, and we talk about science fiction films. You have this very industrialized, or almost not finished, not complete look to the ship that for that film is important because it gives the film and the Nostromo a lived-in look. We have to believe that this ship has been floating through space for so long because we have to believe that this group of people have been together for so long, and that's why their relationship and their working relationship, personal relationship, is as strong as it is, so that we can buy into them as full-fledged characters. So it really is an extension of that. It ultimately is another character, and also the alien itself, the design for the xenomorph, Giger's famous biomechanical look. It was just ingenious in how that was able to be integrated into the look of the film and the design of the set.
And what I'd say about that is, Giger, of course, obviously with that creature, I mean, it is one of the great monsters, if not the great monster. Yeah. But the set, the design of the Nostromo, that comes from the other brilliant artist, Mobius.
Yep.
Who would partner with Jodorowsky when they were trying to put Dune together. And actually, they were trying to put Dune before Alien, and Mobius left his Dune to come over and do Alien.
Yeah, and I just think that, a lot of modern science fiction owe a great debt to that film, especially the hallways. Because when you look, you have two types of hallways in science fiction. You have the Alien, and then you have the Star Trek, the clean lines and all the bright white lights. But if you're trying to convey something sinister, you go with
Alien. Just like the blue collar nature. Like that's the thing about Alien is it's just a truck in space. We're so far in the future, space travel is just as commonplace as driving your car down 66.
Mm-hmm. But there's also the use of shadows and the lack of lighting as compared to the clean, more refined lines and the bright lighting of like the positive future or something like Star Wars. But even Star Wars, certain Star Wars,
Star Wars also was getting very dusty.
Yeah,
like the Millennium Falcon, it's a hunk of junk.
Yeah. So I would have that on my list as well. But it's not. Since Brad talked about it, I'm going to talk about my number 2 is The Wizard of Oz.
Good, thank God. Okay.
So the Great Green Hallway. The reason why I have this on my list because part of me, the kid part of me, will never forget the moment in the film when the Cowardly Lion, is presenting himself before the Great Wizard, and he is shaking, his knees are buckling, and they are given the quest to go bring back the witch's broom. The Cowardly Lion is already shitting his pants, but he wants to ask a question, which angers the great and powerful wizard, and that makes the wizard yell, and that freaks the lion out, and he runs down the green hallway and jumps out of the window. I just remember as a kid that being the funniest shit in the world to me, that he was that scared. He was like, I got to get out of here. I'm not running the length of this long-ass hallway. There's a window right there. I'm diving out of it. Just the idea of being so afraid of something that you dive out of a window. I wonder if he even knew like how high up they were. I overthink shit. So like this is what's going through my head when I'm first seeing that. Like I'm processing all these thoughts, and it makes me laugh. So yeah, that's a part of whenever I think of The Wizard of Oz, I always think of that scene first, and then all the other memorable stuff from it. But when I'm thinking about hallways, that's one of the first ones of note to me. I guess maybe that's why that's one of the first ones of note outside of something like The Shining. But yeah. Oh, don't think I'm omitted The Shining, listeners.
Shut up, Darren.
Yeah, so I'll let someone else get to that. But that's my number 2, Wizard of Oz. Brian, your number 1, your Fistful of Hallways.
So my number 1, it was funny because as we were constructing this list, Brad, you know me so well because you called it as I was typing it. That is Christopher Nolan's 2010, my favorite film of 2010, Inception. The great scene with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is one of my favorite actors. First, I love the design of this world, the way Christopher Nolan really built this world and built this idea of going down layers of your dream. So in this sequence, we're going into the subconscious of Cillian Murphy's, either way.
You pronounce everybody's name. You know,
I know, right?
I go with whatever you say.
Today I'm going
Cillian Murphy.
There we go, Cillian. I like the idea of going into his subconscious, and they introduced this idea of he can train his subconscious to fight against people who are trying to enter in to steal something out of his mind, and the way that is exemplified in his dream or subconscious is like a tactical team or like a security detail. So you have this security detail in this hotel, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is fighting against one of them, and the hallway, and in the other level of the dream, they're driving in a van. So in the van goes kind of goes over this curb and tumbles down this hill, and as he does, everybody is asleep. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, because the equilibrium is moving them, it's in the next level, it's also moving the hotel in that hallway. And so you get this great kind of fight sequence that is happening as the hallway is turning and flipping and moving upside down. And I remember seeing that in the trailer, and of course seeing that out of context, it still just looks like an awesome it's an awesome visual of seeing him running and the hallway twisting and turning. But then watching that film and seeing that in context of the film, I just thought it was just brilliant. I thought everything about that movie was just brilliant. The way that, again, how Nolan just built and constructed that universe and that world and that idea of going down deeper into the layers of the dream. And it was just perfect. It was just awesome. I absolutely loved that movie.
That's a movie when I first saw it, I think I let the hype around it distract me from the quality of the film.
Really? Okay.
And I didn't really appreciate that film until I got it at home, and I've watched it a bunch. And to me, it's like you were saying, it's that emotional core of those action scenes when you finally get to the end and stealing from Cillian Murphy, but actually relieving him of pain too.
Yeah, the whole thing with his father and not feeling like he has to live up to his father's wishes or who his father was, and it's such a great emotional payoff for that movie. I love that movie from beginning to end.
All right, Lisa, your number 1.
There's no earthly way of knowing which direction we are going. This is the tunnel from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. To me, this counts as a hallway because it is within the factory.
It is a corridor.
It is a corridor, and it's the transport from one room in the factory, that wondrous room with all of the chocolate, to the inventing room.
If I can have Beyond the Infinite, you can have this.
So to me, what I love about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I love the original Roald Dahl book. I love this movie. Not a fan of the Johnny Depp version, but why shit on stuff? This is a fistful.
Fistful of shitting.
Fistful of disapproval. No. But what I love about the idea of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is that all of these kids think that they're going to be going on this wonderful tour of this factory, but what they're going through is like a psychological stress test to get to the center of who they are and their worthiness of getting this factory. So the tunnel sequence is a sequence that disturbed all of us as children. There was not one child who was not like, oh my God, that fucking lizard thing, and then the creepy crawly. But for the kids on that crazy journey, they were seeing their fears projected on the walls, and then Willy Wonka is just delighting in observing how they react to this fear.
Monster.
Yeah, he is a monster, and you don't know what's happening within the children's heads, and what's because Charlie, what he saw was the man who offered him the everlasting gobstopper, and what scared him was compromising himself in this way, compromising his honesty. That was the thing that scared him most, not like lizards or spiders or whatever. So I like character-wise, it is a revealing thing about Willy Wonka, because they had just been through that fantastical room where they're eating the chocolate and pure imagination, and then they go through the horror of Augustus Gloop, falling prey to his gluttony and getting sucked up the tube. Yeah, and they're kind of weirded out by, the Oompa Loompas, and then Willy Wonka's reaction to that was kind of underwhelming. So they're already kind of like on edge. And then to have their fears projected before their eyes. It's just such like a bizarre scene, and Gene Wilder, like, what a genius, like, plays the hell out of that character. Nobody else can play him. So play Willy Wonka. So defining.
And it was cool to see Thor Ragnarok pay homage.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The twisted joys of meeting our desires.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why it's my number one.
All right, great pick. Brad, your number one.
Come play with us, Danny.
No. Creepy.
Yeah. Number one, it's got to be The Shining, Darren. It's got to be. Yep. I'm not going to admit The Shining. So much about that hallway sequence is the carpeting. I love now that you can buy clothing attire with that pattern from Mondo. I love that when you go up into the projection booth of the Alamo Winchester, it is carpeted with that pattern. It's just so graphic, and it accentuates just the oddity and the oddity and the weirdness of the fear that you're going to experience at the Overlook Hotel, and that Danny's going to be a part of. And then the other, besides the carpeting, it's the sound effect, right? It's what Kubrick does with Danny's tricycle as it goes over the carpeting, over the hardwood, over the carpeting, over the hardwood. That beat that it creates, building to the reveal of these axe-murdered twins in their blue dresses. It's hard to replicate in your 38-year-old self the emotional response to that image when you were 11 years old. The Shining, I still consider to be the scariest movie ever, because I saw it at the right age or the wrong age, and it burned. This particular image burned into my brain. The room of 237 with the creepy naked old lady ghost, that is scary. That is certainly scary, but it's the dread that is built around the reveal of the dead twins in this hallway sequence that I think is the height of terror in this film.
Yeah. Great pick. All right. My number one. Before my number one, I have to give an honorable mention. Brian, you had the hallway fight in Daredevil on your list.
Yeah.
You had a pick you had an entry from the Raid franchise.
Yeah.
Brad, you also had an entry from the Raid franchise.
Hard boiled.
Yeah, you talked about this before we recorded, Brad, but any hallway list would be... You can't have a discussion about hallways without Park Chan-wook's Old Boy sequence. I don't think you'd have the Daredevil fight sequence or
the Raid
without that. Especially the whole one take aspect and the seeing the actor and the character actually get tired and have that affect him from the beginning of that sequence to the end of it. So yeah, that's an honorable mention. You got to have that one because that's a phenomenal sequence. One of the best hallway sequences in cinema. My number one was actually going to be Hard Boiled. For all the reasons Brian said.
Oh, wow.
But there's another film, and it stars my favorite actor that has a sequence that begins in a hallway, although it ends up outside, and that is in Way of the Gun. And so there's a sequence that it begins in the bedroom where Juliette Lewis is giving birth to this child.
I need to watch that again. It's been a while.
As a surrogate mother. And so things go wrong in that room, and Benicio and Ryan Phillippe have to make their escape. So when they exit the room, that leads them into a hallway. So unbeknownst to them, while they were in the room, there were a group of ex-bagmen who were rounded up by James Caan's character, and they are infiltrating the building because they're going to take Benicio and Ryan out, Longbow and Parker out. And I love that sequence because even though it doesn't remain entirely in that hallway, what bit of that is in the hallway is shot so expertly, and it's another case where you have the people executing the action have that action be an extension of them, the characters, because they aren't going for like a fancy flashful shootout as in something like Hard Boiled or A Better Tomorrow. They're going for a more grounded approach, more realistic and tactical. Earlier in the film, when they first kidnap Juliette Lewis, you see Parker and Longbow working together as a team. So there's a very tactical it's a very tactical aspect to their movements and their communication, and that is exemplified even more in the final sequence that begins in that hallway where they take out some of the bagmen there, how they're covering the corners and how they're covering themselves out of windows and things like that. And for me, I love what that says about those characters because it is realistic, but it also speaks to how well and how long they've known each other, that they can work together and be synchronous like that without verbal communication. We're using hand gestures, and sometimes not even using hand gestures, but just being able to read your partner. And so that's a small detail that you can pick up if you're looking for it. If you don't, you can probably do without it. But for me, it speaks volumes because it speaks also about, and it solidifies why these two people would even be in this situation, that he's been with this other guy for so long that they would trust themselves with each other in something like this, in a plan or a scheme like this that could potentially go haywire. But it also speaks to their confidence in themselves, whether it be false confidence or not, in their proficiency to pull something like this off. And you see them execute with proficiency physically in these scenes. So for me, I think it's just an extension of the relationship that these two characters have in their history. But it's a phenomenal sequence and a really great movie. Christopher McQuarrie's directorial debut. He would be famous for writing The Usual Suspects. He would go on to direct Brad's favorite entry into the Mission Impossible franchise.
Until this next one comes out.
Until that one. So, he showed a promising film career in this movie. And the wife who wants the baby, who Juliette Lewis was having the baby for, she is the wife of the guy in Altered Carbon who's hired Joel Kinnaman to find his murderer. She's the one suspected of maybe she had something to do with it. So she plays that particular character. But Taye Diggs is in Way of the Gun.
Yeah, I love him in this.
Yeah.
James Caan and his nipples.
Yeah. Wow. Jeffrey Lewis is great as the maybe suicidal, but then not suicidal, so like ex-bagman. He's really good. So yeah, I highly recommend that film if you haven't seen it.
The nipple thing is when James Caan is in the interrogation room. On the commentary track, Christopher McQuarrie mentions how his nipples are erect, and every time I watch Way of the Gun now, all I can see are James Caan's erect nipples.
Huh.
Yeah, tight ass shirts, man.
Yeah. Wow.
Damn it. All right. Commentary track. Now it's ruined for you, listeners.
Now I'm thinking about it, I should have picked the actual initial high kidnapping, but I think I just used that recently on Fistful. But anyway, this is a great movie. So check it out if you haven't seen it. Hit us up on social media at ItModcast to let us know what your top 5 hallways are. Brian is at The Turtle Dork on Twitter, The Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, Brian William Young on Facebook. Lisa Gullickson is at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. And I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. What comes out today? What are you supposed to be seeing in theaters?
1517 to Paris?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Catching up on some Netflix.
There you go. There you go.
Altered Carbon. I hear that's good.
That's going to do it for us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And until next time.